Uncertainty often rattles the early minutes of a new day. You feel the clock already tapping its impatient rhythm, asking if you can outrun yesterday's noise. Yet here, before the sun lifts its gentle veil, you are invited into stillness, where attentiveness blooms like dew, bright petals, and discernment awakens with the sparrow's first song. In this hush, alignment with the heart of the Father becomes possible. Every breath steadies into gentle obedience, and promises of hidden fruitfulness wait like ripening orchards just beyond the mist. The one who shaped time itself leans close, ready to govern each moment you surrender. Psalm 460 Tideza, when you cease striving, a larger strength steadies you. The hush is not emptiness but communion. What weight do you need to set down? And which unspoken hope will you place into his open hands? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into. You stand by the window while night's final shadow loosens its grip, and the first silver thread of dawn stitches the horizon to heaven. The room is hushed except for the soft cadence of your breathing, a quiet drum echoing the earth's slow awakening. You choose to delay every agenda, letting the silence settle like fresh snow over frantic tracks of thought. Hands open, shoulders lowering. You notice how tension leaks away when you give it permission to leave. A breeze presses the curtain against your arm, a cool reminder that unseen currents move even when you do not. With each exhale, you release another shard of hurry. With every inhale, you receive the calm presence that has waited, patient and undemanding, through your restless nights. Pause now, letting memory drift to a mountain cave where a prophet once quaked before wind, quake, and fire. Yet only a whisper carried God's heart. Saiwan Kings 1912, power hides inside gentleness. The subdued murmur often speaks louder than thunder. You mirror Elijah's posture, drawing the cloak of quiet around your shoulders, refusing to be drawn back into storms of opinion or torrents of notification. The world outside may already roar, but here you shelter beneath a canopy of quiet where only faithful love is amplified. Beneath that canopy you hear subtle rhythms. The ticking clock becomes a metronome of surrender. The distant dove calls like an unhurried bell calling you to pray. You realize that stillness is not static. It is soil where living roots dive deep, drinking unseen streams. Growth is happening even now, hidden under the calm surface, germinating dreams that frantic motion could never sprout. Stillness grants your soul room to stretch, to breathe, to remember the name of every fear and hand it over. Consider the carpenter of Nazareth who rose, very early, while it was still dark, to retreat alone. You imitate that sacred cadence, stepping away so you can step in empowered. In the hush you trace the outline of today, meetings, decisions, casual encounters, and you lay the sketch at his feet, asking that each stroke match the original design in his heart. You promise yourself this: every time urgency snarls, you will recall this pre-dawn grace and slow your stride until peace overtakes you. For haste never multiplies purpose, yet calm multiplies strength. By lingering now, you learn to advance later with unshakable poise. The sky blushes pale rose, birds confess the morning with soft, rising hymns. You feel the invitation to move, yet slower, gentler, anchored. The hush has accomplished its first miracle. It has made you aware. Awareness blossoms into gratitude, and gratitude becomes the quiet anthem you will carry through crowded corridors and demanding screens. The day will still be full, but it will no longer be loud inside you. You let the room's quiet deepen until even the faint hum of a distant street lamp feels like conversation, and in that hush you begin to notice what busyness always muffles. A swallow darts past the pane, its wings flicking morning light into a rhythm your pulse unconsciously follows. The tea kettle sighs from the kitchen, not as a taskmaster, but as a gentle herald of warmth on the tongue. You smile because you are finally hearing ordinary things with extraordinary clarity. The world has not grown louder. Your inner volume has simply been tuned down, and suddenly the Father's undertones rise to the surface like a melody rescued from static. You close your eyes and catalogue every sense. The woody scent of brewing coffee, the coolness of tile beneath bare feet, the faint tang of rain promised by clouds still hovering beyond the rooftops. Each detail becomes a syllable in the language of presence, reminding you that revelation seldom shouts, it leans close and trusts you will lean closer. A psalmist once wrote that every star is called by name. You realize that same God calls every moment by name as well, waiting to see if you will answer. My sheep hear my voice, I know them, and they follow me. Sought John 10:2-7. Recognition grows where relationship is nurtured, familiarity with his whispers is cultivated, not inherited. You picture a shepherd who knows the timbre of each bleat, and you wonder, how often has your heart cried out this week only to find its echo bouncing off walls of distraction? In this moment you resolve to listen until echoes turn into dialogue. So you breathe, counting 4 steady seconds in, 6 out, allowing breath to sweep the mind like a broom gathering scattered papers. What remains is a single sheet on which Grace begins writing today's agenda. Listen first. Speak slow. Choose words as though they were seeds. You decide that traffic hums will become cues to pray for commuters. Elevator chimes remind us to bless strangers who will share the brief ascent. Every ringtone will prompt a silent question. Is this call louder than God's leading? Attentiveness, you learn, is less about strained effort and more about practiced receptivity, like sitting beneath an almond tree until the faint crack of its first blossom opening feels monumental. You will carry that posture into conference rooms and grocery aisles, trusting that holy nudges slip into life through tiny hinges. When anxiety flares, you will not rush to smother it with noise. You will ask, what is this unrest trying to reveal? Then you will wait, because waiting is where clarity gathers. By the time sunlight spills fully across the floorboards, you have become fluent in softness. Outside, a neighbor's dog barks twice. You interpret it as a cue to notice anyone who feels unheard. A car door slams. You translate the thunk into a reminder that some souls are closing themselves away, so you pray their locks might loosen. The world is no longer a backdrop, but a living script written by fingers that never waste ink. You tuck this awareness into your pocket like a compass, certain it will steer you when maps fail. You step from the still nursery of attentiveness into a meadow of slow decision, where each blade of grass seems to ask which path your foot will press. Sunlight filters through layered clouds like tempered gold, reminding you that guidance is often indirect, never blinding, always sufficient. Discernment is the art of holding possibilities to the light until motives become transparent. So you lift today's choices one by one, letting them glint, rotate, reveal their hidden edges. Some glimmer with gentle purpose, others dull to grey when inspected. You bless the discovery, because even the unchosen teach you how desire can masquerade as calling. A jay cries from a cedar, its pitched warning splitting the hush, and you recognize the sound of caution. Not every voice wearing urgency deserves obedience, so, like a jeweler tapping gemstones, you listen for the resonant ring of genuine instruction. Trust grows as you test. The Word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. See Hebrews 4:1-12. Divine truth separates marrow from motive. It frees your heart from counterfeit urgings. With that blade you trim away flattery that would puff you up, anxiety that would press you forward, guilt that would drag you backward. What remains is a slim, unburdened line pointing toward peace. You reach for a journal, sketching a simple column of pros and cons. Yet even lists bow to a higher filter. Will this choice enlarge love? Will it clarify hope for someone unseen? Suddenly the metrics of salary, convenience, and applause fade beside the luminous weight of eternity. You suspect heaven's economy prizes kindness over speed and faithfulness over novelty. Discernment teaches you to audit your inner ledgers accordingly. Clouds drift, shifting shadows across the ground, illustrating how perspective alters everything. You smile, accepting that partial light keeps you dependent on the one who sees the entire field. So you pray the ancient plea, teach me your way. You wait until an inward nod affirms the next step. As certain as a compass aligning to true north, the nod may be subtle. A calm that outlasts a question, a verse returning unbidden, a friend's counsel echoing like a well-struck bell. You practice noticing these alignments, because pattern recognition is the workshop where discernment owns its craft. When uncertainty lingers, you hold space for it rather than rushing to fill the silence with premature yes or hasty no. Like a vintner guarding barrels, you let decisions age until their flavor matures. You remind yourself that Jesus waited 30 years before speaking publicly. Delay is sometimes the chiseling that carves depth into purpose. Thus you resist comparison, believing that timelines are as bespoke as fingerprints. Evening plans begin to flicker across your mind, but you release them, choosing instead to examine the present minute. Clarity grows where presence abides. Wind stirs tall grass, you interpret it as a whisper. Proceed only where goodness can follow. With that criterion, many paths gently close, a few swing wide, and peace, the great arbiter, settles like dew on your chosen direction. You rise, not with every answer, but with a calibrated heart able to pivot if fresh light appears. Discernment has not handed you a rigid map. It has tuned your inner compass to respond to the slightest shift of grace. You leave the meadow of discernment and enter a long, sun-dappled lane where trees arch overhead like patient mentors, each branch offering symmetry to guide your stride. In this corridor of green, you feel the pull of invisible strings drawing heart, mind, and action toward a central rhythm, one heartbeat older than stars. Alignment is not mechanical, it is relational. Like two dancers learning each other's subtle signals until movement looks effortless. So you begin by matching your breathing to the slow cadence of grace, steady in, patient out, surrender woven through every exhale. Paths diverge at an old stone well, and you pause, recalling the rabbi beside Jacob's well who offered living water to a woman out of sync with hope. You picture him drawing circles in dusty sand, making room for battered stories to settle into truth. Alignment, you realize, always begins with honesty, naming thirst before asking to be filled. So you speak quietly into the morning air, the disappointment still lodged beneath your ribs, the ambition threatening to outrun wisdom, the lingering resentment that soars prayer. No thunder rolls, yet something shifts as confession unknots tangled cords, freeing them to be retied in order. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. A Proverbs 3:5-6, straightness is not a geometric line, but a lived harmony. When you defer to divine counsel, obstacles become stepping stones rather than barricades. With those words echoing, you lift your day like a sail, asking the Spirit to set its angle toward kindness. Emails, deadlines, casual greetings, each becomes thread in a tapestry He designs. You commit to answering messages at a pace that honors people over productivity, to scheduling breaks where compassion can breathe, to measuring success not in applause, but in interior music that remains in tune long after tasks conclude. A gust stirs leaves overhead, their collective hush reminding you that creation itself aligns constantly, tides bowing to the moon, swifts tracing unseen thermals, planets keeping steady appointment with dawn. You smile at the thought that your smallest decision can join that cosmic choreography. Even your gait adjusts, shoulders back, pace unhurried, so that body testifies to inner agreement. The lane bends, and with each step you review your calendar, inviting holy edits shorten that meeting by 10 minutes to phone a grieving friend. Delay a purchase so generosity can find better soil. Exchange 1 hour of scrolling for one quiet walk where new instructions might surface. As sunbeams flicker through foliage, you notice how shadows shorten when light stands directly overhead. Alignment works the same. When you stand beneath truth without leaning, distortions shrink. An idea surfaces, simple yet compelling, to begin or to end today's journey with a handwritten note of gratitude. You accept the prompting, confident that such small acts recalibrate larger systems. By the time you reach the lane's end, a gate opens onto open fields, symbol of opportunity married to peace. You feel internal gears click into place, not because every detail is solved, but because every priority now bows to a single chief architect. Alignment has braided stillness, attentiveness, and discernment into a cord strong enough to tow the day's weight without fraying. You step forward, aware that misalignment may tug again, but equally sure that returning to this lane requires only one whispered prayer: realign me. And heaven will answer, as faithfully as dawn follows night. The lane opens into sun-warmed fields, and you feel the day invite movement, but not the hectic burst of sprinting, rather the calm cadence of a shepherd guiding ewes across soft grass. You grip the earlier stillness like a lantern and choose to advance without jarring the flame. Each stride becomes an act of deference. You match pace to grace, letting hurried voices slide past like gusts that bend reeds yet leave deep roots untouched. This softer rhythm announces that strength need not be loud. Influence can flow from quiet reliability. the kind that keeps promises even when no applause follows. Soon a child's kite snags in a low branch by the roadside. You pause, gentle hands freeing the tangled string, and the smile you receive feels larger than the task. Obedience often hides in such unobtrusive service, replying kindly to brusque emails, yielding the last parking spot, lowering volume so another can speak. You learn to interpret interruptions as invitations rather than intrusions, trusting that divine choreography often rearranges your itinerary for someone else's healing. The pattern echoes the carpenter who washed weary feet, dignifying men who would soon stumble. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. See Philippians 2:30. The impulse to comply with kindness originates beyond self-discipline. Heavenly power shapes both desire and follow through. When you lean on that inner sponsorship, burdens become lighter, motives clearer. You imagine yourself yoked beside Christ, whose steady pull guides oxen yet never bruises. The wooden beam fits because love measured your shoulders before carving its curve. As you walk, you sense resistance melting. Stubborn agendas loosen, replaced by supple readiness. You notice how creation mirrors this cooperative yield. Vines curl toward trellises. Rivers trace valley contours, planets orbit without deviation. Their obedience is not forced. It is harmony with design. You aim for the same concord, allowing conscience to act as subtle reins nudging you from ego's cliff edge back onto mercy's path. At a cafe counter you order tea, and when the cashier's frown betrays a sleepless night, you linger to offer warmth that costs only seconds, yet might rescue an unseen breaking point. Such choices accumulate like soft raindrops steadily filling a cistern. By dusk, reservoirs of goodwill overflow into circles you may never witness. Gentle obedience refuses the myth that scale determines significance. It remembers mustard seeds and widow's mites, measuring worth by alignment, not magnitude. Evening shadows stretch, signaling closure to daylight tasks, and you review the hours, noticing fewer missteps, more intentional pauses, and the unmistakable echo of another's footsteps beside yours. Gratitude glows where anxiety once flickered. You resolve that tomorrow will begin with the same prayerful slowness, so that compliant steps can again unveil hidden wonders. For when you move in tempered cadence, heaven's hush travels with you, transforming common corridors into sanctuaries and ordinary gestures into sacraments. You step into a late, morning orchard where branches bow, heavy with ripened figs that formed slowly under patient skies. Their sweetness testifies that abundance is never the child of haste. It emerges through unforced seasons, roots drinking deeply while leaves exchange silent breath with dawn. Walking between rows, you recall the earlier stillness, the sharpened discernment, the calibrated stride, each preceding choice cultivating soil for this quiet harvest. Fruitfulness, you realize, is not merely output. It is overflow, the natural result of living aligned with rhythm instead of racing against it. A robin flutters onto a nearby limb, tilting its head as though inviting you to notice the effortless balance between taking and giving. It plucks a berry only after visiting the puddle that nourishes grass. Creation models reciprocity. So you examine your schedule for gaps where generosity can drip like dew onto parched colleagues, family, strangers. Every act of service completed in gentle obedience becomes a seed planted in unseen furrows, and now those seeds swell, pushing through earth, offering provision not just for you, but for those who hunger for hope. You pick one fig, feeling its weight in your palm, admiring how seasons sculpted sugar into flesh without your effort, yet your cooperation with slowness positioned you to receive it. Unhurried fruitfulness refuses frantic striving. It trusts that influence mature enough to nourish others cannot be microwaved. Like vineyards pruned in winter to yield fuller vintage, you accept pruning moments, cancelled plans, deferred dreams, as hidden investments in richer character. Gratitude replaces grumbling when you remember that dormant months protect future blossoms from frost. A gentle wind carries the scent of jasmine across the grove, and you breathe, sensing how fragrance itself is a form of witness, invisible yet persuasive. May your presence today release similar aroma, kind words in crowded elevators, patience at malfunctioning checkouts, silent prayers for headlines that bruise your soul. Such offerings may seem small, but combined they weave a tapestry of mercy that blankets communities. The orchard reminds you that one tree's shade shelters many travelers. Likewise, your slow-grown peace can canopy restless hearts who wander near. You press onward, palms stained with nectar, and understand that harvested blessings are meant for sharing, so you resolve to slice this morning's surplus into encouragements. A text message speaking life, a note tucked into a lunchbox, a donation quietly made. These gestures, multiplied by grace, will circle back like migrating swallows, settling someday on branches you may never see. Trust deepens as you witness the cyclical generosity of God. How every seed is both memory and prophecy, recalling past provision while foretelling future supply. The sun reaches its crest, lighting each fruit with warm brilliance. Yet even at fullest brightness, the orchard is calm, leaves waving a silent benediction. You pause beneath their shifting canopy, palms open, letting light and shadow flicker across your skin, symbolic of joys and trials that together mature virtue. You whisper gratitude for every slow lesson, how stillness birthed attentiveness, which sharpened discernment, guiding alignment, inspiring gentle obedience, culminating in this unhurried abundance. Your heart swells as you realize the day ahead is already fragrant with possibility. All that remains is to walk slowly enough to gather what grace sets within reach. Breathe deeply, sensing the quiet pulse beneath everything. Picture a single seed pressing upward through dark soil, drawn by a light it cannot yet see. That is your soul when you move slower, guided by whispers stronger than noise. Remember today's orchard's sweetness formed, not forced, shade offered, not demanded. Carry that image into meetings, traffic, restless conversations. Let patience be your pace setter and kindness your harvest. When hurry beckons, recall dawn's still hush and choose the longer, richer way. Now close your eyes, listen for birdsong beyond the hum, and linger there,